Welcome to episode 1 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. On this week's show, we'll be talking about that BMW Berlin Marathon and my Abbott World Marathon Major 6-star that I earned there. We'll hear from TCS London Marathon event director, Hugh Brasher, and how Alex got on with her back-to-back challenge, Berlin one weekend, London the next. And we'll look ahead to the Bank of America Chicago Marathon.
That's it. We are 2 majors down so far this season. What a couple of weeks it has been. We had Berlin and all the record-breaking runs that were there. Deena, of course, I'm excited to hear about your 6-star medal. There was the youngest ever female champion at London. She was aged just 23 and a debutante winning the men's event. The same 2 Swiss athletes won Berlin and London wheelchair races, so let's go. Deena, congratulations. You are a 6-star finisher.
Amazing. Berlin was so much fun. And then it was fun just one weekend later to see you taking on London and hosting so many events on stage at the expo there. What an action-packed 2 weeks it's been.
It has been, since we first released it, episode 0 and the teaser, it has been a incredible start to the fall season in World Marathon Majors running. You, of course, celebrated in style, and so we'll come to your race in real detail because I'm super keen to find out how it all went. Before we do, though, I did see some pictures of you with Eliud Kipchoge, and of course, he ran a new world record, 2:01:09 in Berlin.
He was shining brightly all weekend long. Like you could just see his confidence even before the race, let alone seeing him execute the brilliant race that he did. He was under sub 2-hour pace for the first half of the race. And what a joy it was to meet up with him. He was actually lingering around the 6-star finisher tent, which he doesn't have yet. But when I got a chance to catch up with him, everybody that ran Berlin got their medals. And on one side, it showed these iconic places that you passed during the 42-kilometer race. But on the opposite side of your medal is an engraved picture of Eliud Kipchoge himself holding his gold medal. So I was asking him, so my medal has a picture of you on it. Does yours have a picture of me on it? Or does everybody's have your face?
Brilliant.
He was really just so down to earth, being as such a star in the sport, but I think even universally now.
Yeah.
He stands for pushing aside limits and just really going after your goals. He stands for so much.
So you saw him after the race. Did you get the chance to say to him anything like, so how was that? Because sometimes it's difficult, isn't it? He's just run a world record. What do you say to someone that just ran 2:01:09? Did you even go, how did you find that? Or did you get some marathon chat?
No, I said, look what I've got, and you don't. He still has 2 majors to go. His smile said it all, but looking back at his splits during that race, what really stood out to me is that he is human. He was on sub 2 pace through, I think, 25 kilometers and then slipped a little. And that's when everybody starts to fall off their personal best if it's a day they're going to struggle. So you could see just from his splits that it was a hard last 10K. And that's when the marathon should get hard. Sometimes it gets challenging a little sooner, but you can see from his splits that it was a hard effort out there. But to smash his own world record by 30 seconds, that's just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, he went through first half in 59:51. I mean, we know that Berlin is a super fast course, often touted as the fastest of Abbott World Marathon Majors courses. I don't know, maybe you do, but do you think he was actually aiming at sub 2 hours before Berlin? I'd read some stuff where he's quite kind of coy about saying, well, I'll achieve something, whatever's possible, I'll give it my best. But in his, in Kipchoge camp, they must have known. Are we going for 1:59? Are we not? Did you get any indication of that?
He publicly said that he was not trying to break sub 2 hours, but what we saw out there showed a different story, right? I mean, they were just blistering pace from the start. And the people that went with him, at that pace, pacers can't stick around very much. So he's running a good bulk of that race by himself. There's a reason when it was that sub 2 hour attempt that they had this rotating shift of pacers the entire time. It makes a difference having someone's energy next to you to pull you along. But that energy is what all these Abbott World Marathon majors provide for everyone, for the masses out there. Just a horde of people pulling you along, whether they're running next to you or the sidelines are packed with spectators. It is such an empowering sport to be a part of in that regard.
I mean, he ran pretty much half of his kilometre splits at that sub 2 hour pace, going through really quick. And it was only from about 24 kilometres on that the pace just started to eke a little bit outside 2 hour pace. It is lovely to see him human. But at the same time, he almost feels, his performances feel above human, because he's winning with such intensity of application and constant pressure. Competing against him must be a real challenge. Do you think, so going forwards, do you think he can run sub 2 hours? And if so, when?
Well, his hashtag is no human is limited. So I have to say, yes, he can. But I also believe that Berlin was ideal conditions. It was a really good day. And in order to break a course record or a world record, things have to line up. It has to be a course that's flat, but also has easy tangents to navigate. Berlin has that. You have to have competition that's equally matched. He had really great competitors that I believe went on that starting line, towed that starting line, thinking that he was beatable that day. He proved otherwise, but also the weather has to be ideal. And that's ideal for spectators along with the runners because we need that encouragement on the sideline. So all of those things have to work together. Berlin was that day. He fell a little short of it.
And shall we dig into your race? Come on. Well, actually, before we do, Deena, I'd love to talk about the elite women's racing because so often there's, a performance like Kipchoge's and it can overshadow what is also some fantastic women's running.
Yeah, any other race, Tigist Assefa of Ethiopia would have come out with the front page of every newspaper across Europe. It was the third fastest time in history behind world record holder Bridget Kosgei and the amazing Paula Radcliffe. Third fastest time in history. And this was only her second marathon. She broke the course record by 3 minutes, which happened to be an 18-minute personal best from earlier this March when she debuted. So what an incredible performance. It makes me really excited to see her next marathon, which she's considering London or Tokyo. So we're going to be able to talk about Tigist Assefa more in our future.
Yeah, and I wonder, are we entering a new era for women's marathoning with Bridget Kosgei, with Ihalu that we saw in London, more about that in a moment, and, Assefa's course record, because this is regularly knocking on the door of 2:17, now 2:15, and faster. There seems to be the opportunity for women's marathoning to make almost another breakthrough.
Undoubtedly. I mean, we're here to talk marathons, and women's marathoning is so exciting right now. The top 3 women in Berlin were under course record pace, or they finished under course record. That is just unbelievable running. And American record holder was in the race, doubted, really was the star leading up to the race because no one really matched her in biographies, but it was really just a day to remember in racing. The top performers really just had a good day, but they showed a lot of potential for their future as well.
Yeah, and I wonder when we might see those together on a start line and what a start line that's going to be. Often we see, particularly loaded start lines around the world for Abbott World Marathon Majors, and we can recount the top 6 faster than and the top 4 faster than, but there's some real rivalries just in the early phases of development here that I'm really excited. I mean, I'm sure, Deena, when you're at your peak, running 2:19, seeing these rivalries start to build around you would have left you excited.
Absolutely. And you see weekend after weekend that it's record after record being broken. As a fan of the sport, also, it is so exciting for us to be, we're almost getting used to it, right? Here's another course record, and here's another national record, here's another world record. It's a treat every time, but we're kind of looking at that every weekend because the competition is there and runners are hungry. And even in the masses, right? Everyone's taking the shoe technology and these fast courses, and they're wanting to post their personal best, run that Boston qualifier. It is competitive throughout the 45,000 people that are running on the streets, and that makes this sport so exciting. And it's why we can also relate to Eliud Kipchoge and Tigist Assefa, because we are going through the same ebbs and flows throughout the span of 42 kilometers as they're going through. It may look a little slower and show a little slower on our watches, but it's just as exciting to know how they get through it so that we too can use that knowledge for our own striving.
And you actually did. It actually did go through this. While I was sat in the comfort of my sofa, you were pounding the streets of Berlin. And, how did it go? What's your top take on your 2:45:12?
It was just an amazing experience. And I, going into the race, really wanted to ride that line of running strong enough that it would feel rewarding, and running slow enough that it was comfortable. And so riding that line was a challenge the whole time. You get a little competitive with the people around you. I started in the elite start corral and spent 42 kilometers getting passed by hundreds of people. So that was a little humbling in and of itself. But the whole experience was just about gaining that inspiration. And I had the privilege from the moment I stepped down in Berlin to be a part of that professional elite field, from sitting at breakfast the morning before the race. And we have some audio that I recorded that morning as I watched runners filing in to fuel their last meal before the race. And so let's take a listen.
It is race morning, and the dining hall this morning has a slightly different feel. It's almost more like a meditation room than the hustle, bustle, and laughter that was here all week. As I sit here and watch athletes bring towers of toast to their table, I'm reminded of 2003 when Andrew and I were sitting at breakfast race morning, and my eyes were wide looking at the amount of toast that some of these runners had in front of them. And he said, "Deena, they're going to war. They're going to need every calorie and carb they could possibly fit in them." And it lightened my mood and made me chuckle. So here we are again, observing the carbo loading of athletes. This is, in my mind, the last boring meal of the week. I've spent the last few days eating rice and pasta and potatoes, and I think it's very exciting. A lot of bread. Very exciting to know that there's a more flavorful meal in my future. I like to do a little research ahead of time, and if you're running the London Marathon, you probably want to seek out Indian food the night after the race. And here in Berlin, they have a lot of good Syrian food, which I've never had. It's going to be more Mediterranean in style, so that I am used to, but it should be exciting to search for a good Syrian restaurant to celebrate in tonight. That's it from the dining hall, as I've refreshed my app enough, my weather app, to let me know that the weather's going to be absolutely perfect once again here in Berlin. It seems funny that My taper starts 10 days out from race day, and so does the weather prediction for race day. So it allows my thumb to do some refreshing throughout the day to find mid-50s to low 60s for the race itself. Possible rain, but that just adds negative ions to the air, which is actually good for performance. It reacts to the positive ions in our bodies, so that's a good thing when it's raining, as opposed to being upset to see a raindrop in the forecast. So now that the weather is set for the day, we start obsessing about going to the bathroom before the race. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go grab another cup of coffee.
And then how exciting after breakfast to prepare for this race and board the buses and head to the starting line. And all of the professional athletes were corralled into these tents. And there was a men's tent and a women's tent, but that's where everybody kind of gets in their pre-race mindset. They put on their headphones, they start lacing up their racing shoes. And I was able to catch a little bit of audio here too.
We just got off the pro athlete bus and filed into tents. They have 2 professional tents, one for women, one for men. Feel privileged to be a part of the professional group, even though I'll be a much slower version of my professional self. Stepping outside, you could refresh your weather app and see that the conditions are perfect, but stepping outside and feeling it made me so excited for the day. I needed a good weather marathon, and it is finally here, so I can celebrate my 6th star under these ideal Berlin conditions. It seems like more than any other marathon that this race just delivers perfect conditions year after year. So very happy to be a part of that. For Eliud Kipchoge, it looks like the world record would be in jeopardy under these conditions. And for Kira D'Amato, looking to lower her American record, it's looking like a good day for her as well. Both have an entourage of personal pacers that will be joining them. Eliud Kipchoge also has a entourage of camera men to document his every move. So it will be an exciting morning. The only thing I'm regretting at this point is not being able to watch it unfold, but I look forward to hearing about it at the end of the race.
It's a fascinating insight into the other side of completing an Abbott World Marathon major, actually, Deena. When you were in that elite start tent and at breakfast, like, how much have you harped back to, and take this, 2:45 is still an incredible run, but it's not in the elite, right? Okay, let's be clear. I feel kind of slightly out of place saying this, but, isn't women's elite. We've seen the top elite time now. Was there a sense of I would love to be back in here doing this, kind of pushing at that level? How did you balance that when you were in the elite 10, but you knew I'm actually not going to be up with the elite women here?
Right. It's a great question and appropriate, Martin, to ask that. And in my mind, the preparation was the same. I still needed to be well fueled. I still needed to have the best night's sleep the night before. But where I felt the role being slightly different was in that professional athlete tent, where I was talking to runners from all over the world, and they were looking at me as a mentor and warming up for a couple of minutes with them just so that we could have conversation. And that to me was really the most meaningful part of my morning. I knew I had a long race ahead of me, but to hear feedback from the runners who listened to this podcast, episode 0, 2 days before, to hear from runners that they had read my book and gained so much inspiration from it. And they know that they're ready to run a personal best because of what we've brought to the table and sharing with them. That to me was why I'm still here, why I'm still in the sport, not just putting the miles in, but really sharing it with people and listening to what makes them tick, because that's going to make me better, but sharing the same thing to help make them better.
And did you find you still had that same sense of marathon intrepidation and nerves and anxiety and excitement, or were you like, I'm pretty chilled about this?
Oh, I was not chill. I felt the same nerves because it's the distance, right? That distance is a challenge every time you get out there. As soon as you let your guard down in the marathon, it's going to come up and bite you in the behind. So I remember
Yeah.
being in this mindset right as we were walking to that beautiful start line that celebrates the diversity of this sport with a big rainbow arch. And I remember thinking, I'm pretty sure I'm tough enough to do this, but if I were to look around me and gain inspiration in the world, in this day and time, what new tools can I have to work with? And I thought of the late Queen Elizabeth and how she led with such grace during turmoil and fear and unrest over the years. And I thought, I'm going to run with her grace. And then I thought of Ukraine and how resilient they have been over the months of this war they're enduring. And I thought, I'm going to run with the resiliency of the Ukrainians. And then I thought of my friend Magnolia, who anytime I'm tired or hungry and losing my wits, reminds me siempre digna, which means always dignity or dignity first. And so I was reminded of the dignity she has to reinforce in me all the time, which she carries so well. And I thought, you know what? When the going gets tough, if I rely on grace and resiliency and dignity, I'm going to have what it takes to get to that finish line. And I felt at peace knowing that I had those qualities within me to draw on, but they weren't mine. They were from other people. And so sometimes we need purpose coming from within, and other times we need to reach out and grab it from the sidelines.
And so how did you get that in the race? So you went through halfway in 1:21:21, which is beautifully numerical for me. And you came back in 1:23:52. Like, at what points were resilience, grace, dignity in action for you in your race?
Yeah. So, Martin, in the marathon, it's always the last 10K that's the hardest. Well, it hit me at halfway. I thought, oh my gosh, this is too soon. It's only supposed to be a hard 10K. Why is it getting hard now? And really coupled with these traits I was drawing on, I also saw that on the Berlin course and much of the Abbott World Marathon majors, there's not a lot of room to sulk or have any self-pity because there are spectators every step of the way. And not only were the Germans really excited to see Caster on my bib because that's a strong German name, but there were also a lot of people on the course were American or knew me, and a lot of personal cheers for Go Deena and get that 6-star Deena. And that was really important to hear. And it's the reason why people write their names on their bib numbers or down the side of their arms or wear it on a t-shirt, because that personal touch from someone shouting your name, encouraging you when the going gets tough is so critical. And at every Abbott World Marathon major, there are over 1 million spectators cheering your name along the way. That is such an empowering experience, because when you can do something challenging and difficult that makes you question your sanity or your ability, and you could rise up and get to that finish line regardless, there's nothing that can get in your way in life. You can do anything. And I think that's why people are so magnetized to this sport to continue doing it.
And did you know, we caught up a little bit before, but did you know that you were going to receive at the end, did you know you'd get your medal from your daughter and your husband? Was that something that you were using to focus your energy on, or was that a surprise for you at the end? Just how was it when you crossed the line and you thought, I've done this, I've actually done it?
It was so special because I only thought I was going to see my husband and daughter at 36 kilometers, which was near our hotel. And I told my daughter before the race, when I was leaving the hotel, I said, I can't wait to see you at 36 kilometers. And I may not look good, but I promise you, I am having the time of my life. I'm having a really good time. And so when I saw them there and I shouted, I'll race you to the finish, and she bolted ahead down the street, I was almost like, wait for for me. And
Brilliant.
she did beat me to the finish because they were waiting in the 6-star tent when I ran through the Brandenburg Gate, through the finish line into that 6-star finisher's medal tent. They were there to put the medal around my neck, and it was sweeter than I ever imagined, because it's hard to get to one starting line, let alone a finish line. And to have this medal sum up all 6 journeys is so totally special. It's an undescribable feeling.
That's such a mum thing to say, though, Deena, because like what when because you almost have to, when you were competing at the highest level, you didn't have children, and so now it's almost like you've got to reassure your daughter, look, I know I'm going to look in pain and I know I'm going to look terrible, but this is marathon running. This is what I do, and you need to be okay with it. What do you think, you doing the marathon, having your daughter the age she is now, what do you think it taught her about you?
I think if it taught anything, it was persistence, because she saw in 2019, we're going to go to Berlin this year. We had just gone to Tokyo, and then we're going to go to Berlin, and mommy's going to get her 6-star finisher's medal. And she saw me through the training all summer long because she was out of school. And then 2 weeks before the race, I trip over my friend's dog and I break my ankle. No Berlin marathon. And then the pandemic happens. And through this all, I'm continuing to put one foot in front of the other. So I hope, if anything, it shows her that persistence is really important, that you may not get to where you want to go when you want to get there, but if you keep at it, you'll eventually reach your goals and dreams. So it was a special moment to share with my family. And there was a guy, Andy Douglas, on Instagram, who said to me after a Berlin post that I had made, that more people have stood on the top of Everest than people have earned 6 stars. And that really hit home to me. It makes you show what rare territory you are in. This was a feat that was a long time in the making. My very first Abbott World Marathon major was in 2001 in New York. Martin, you brought attention in our last episode that this is a really long journey for me. But it really did make it special, because every one was a journey in and of itself. So just an amazing experience in Berlin. The only regret is that I wasn't on the sidelines to see the men's and women's professional fields, because those performances were just insanely impressive.
And I love the fact that what's accompanied you on the journey from 2001 to 2022, your performances back in the early 2000s, at that time, compared to the performances now, although there's like less than 25 minutes in range, actually, it's the impact on wider family, wider people, your own daughter, your husband, the people you connect with on social. And 20 years ago, you probably weren't thinking in the same terms. So I love the fact that your Abbott World Marathon Majors journey has journeyed with you.
Absolutely. And to share it with so many people at 30, I think it was maybe around 30 kilometers, that this guy, Ben, passed me, one of the many that passed me, men and women who passed me during this race. He passed and said, I was relaxing in my hotel room yesterday and listened to you and Martin's episode 0, and it was so inspiring. Thanks for being out here. Good luck getting after your 6-star. This is what our sport is, in the middle of a race, that we're supporting one another. So it really is just a amazing community that just seems to get broader and broader as the years go on. You find connections with so many people.
Well, congratulations again. You are an Abbott World Marathon Majors finisher. And to celebrate that, we're just going to catch up with a little bit of audio that we recorded with Deena at the finish line of the BMW Berlin Marathon recently.
It's more special than I imagined. I think it takes so long to do this. I think in 2019 I expected to just run Tokyo and come here and run Berlin, but I tripped over a dog's leash and broke my foot, and then the pandemic happened, and it's just it's amazing when life when life gets in the way of these big goals. So to have it take this long just makes it that much more sweet because so much went into making it happen. And it's just special that the greatest marathons in the world can be summed up in one very large heavy medal around our necks. So it's, I think, much more special than any individual medal that I have hanging at home because it's symbolic of such a great feat.
That is a wrap on the Berlin Marathon. And as our Abbott World Marathon Majors team packed up their Berlin bags, they headed to the TCS London Marathon only a week later. And Martin, you were there.
I was there. I was at the running show hosting some on-stage presentations, so saw lots of nervous and excited runners getting ready to run London all week. It's a fantastic pre-race feel with everybody at the running show coming to collect their numbers and telling stories about how well they're going to run and their nerves and anxiety and everything else. You know, I think something like almost 40,000 people ran together through the streets of London on Sunday. It turned out to be all right weather. On the Friday when we were there, everybody was panicking about the rain and people were trying to get hold of rain tops and speaking about wearing bin liners and all this kind of stuff at the start line. But actually, it turned out to be a pretty good day with some pretty amazing races, all defined, particularly in the elites, by how each race was won by a mile.
That was so impressive. On the women's side, Yalemzer Fuhala of Ethiopia dropped a 4:43 mile at the 24th mile, and nobody could match that. And on the men's side, it went very similarly. A lot of times the races are handed the exact same weather. They're all on course record pace and they set up totally differently. In this case, it was very much similar racing, almost mirrors of one another when Amos Kipruto of Kenya ran 4:21 in the 25th mile. He put 17 seconds on the rest of the field in that 1 mile, in that one stretch of racing. It was just decisive moves by very confident athletes.
Yeah, decisive is a really, really good way of putting it, because I don't know how you respond to a 4:43 mile at the sharp end of the women's race. Yahalo became the youngest ever women's winner of the London Marathon. She also broke a 6-year Kenyan win streak in winning for Ethiopia. She's only 23. It was only her second marathon. I think she ran 2:17 in her first marathon. She beat the defending champion, Jocelyn Jepkosgei. And then she dropped in this 4:43 mile. The top 6 women all went sub 2:20. What an incredible performance, especially after she fell over around the mile 20 mark.
I couldn't see what happened there either. It seemed like they replayed it and I just couldn't tell what she fell on, if her legs were just getting tired. It just was like a stumble, but she reattached quite quickly after that.
It looked like she sort of got tripped by the feet of the person in front. You know, she was running quite close, a small little tight neck group, and they're going quick and I guess, you know, you get used to running in close proximity, a bit like cyclists get used to cycling in very close proximity. Elite fields get used to running in very close proximity. And sometimes accidentally a foot can flick up and your foot can hit theirs at the same time. Your front foot hits their rear trailing foot. And it can just cause enough of a unsettled in your balance and your running stride to knock you out. But she got up quickly. I mean, her adrenaline must have been pumping. She let it settle and she drops a 4:43.
I was just going to say adrenaline because, you know, you could think that this could really derail her chances psychologically or even physically. But I think a lot of times when something surprising like that happens, your adrenaline takes over and actually works to your advantage. Not to say that that's the reason she won. She's probably still would have won if she hadn't fallen. But I think the worst job in the entire world, presently speaking, would be on the selection committee of the Ethiopian national team, because you have Yalemzer Fuhala, who is so young at this distance, but just ran 2:17:27 in only her second marathon, up against Asefa, who just won Berlin and a course record, Gade, who's debuting at the marathon distance this December in Valencia. She's the world record holder in the half marathon. And Gebre Selassie, our world champion in the marathon. I mean, the Ethiopian women's team is going to be hot coming into these next Olympics.
Absolutely. I tell you, it was a staggering women's field. I don't like to break this to you, Deena, but even if you ran a personal best, just breaking your PB, you still would have finished fifth.
Right.
I mean, top 4 women breaking 2:19, top 6 breaking 2:20.
This is where we are in marathon running today, and it is so exciting. And the men's race was also exciting. Amos Kipruto's race was so phenomenal. It was his first Abbott World Marathon Major win. And we have to talk about our 5th place finisher, Kenenisa Bekele. He was going maybe possibly after a world record. He did a lot of the work in the early stages of the race. And in the end, 5th place, he still ran a world's best in the marathon for masters runners in 2:05:53. He's 40 years old.
Yeah, 40, 2:05:53. I mean, he could be in with resetting some of the records for masters athletes if he chooses to continue, on that path.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah. And I tell you, speaking of masters athletes, somebody you must know, Joan Benoit Samuelson. She won the 1984 Olympic Games marathon in Los Angeles. She ran now aged 65. She was running alongside her daughter. She said after the race, "I'm a grandmother. Everybody said I wouldn't do it, but I would never say never." She ran 3:20:20.
So impressive. And she's dealing with injury too. She talked to me. I talked to her right before Berlin. She texted me a good luck message, and I texted her a good luck in London. And she said, I'm not sure I'm going to do it. I'm having a lot of problems. I'm not sure I'm going to make it. And I said, oh, you rise up against it. Every time you rise up above it. Her daughter broke 3 hours for the first time.
Wow.
So this is good genetics in this family. But I couldn't be happier for Joan, because at the age of 11, I was sitting on the floor of my parents' living room watching her win a gold medal, became a runner later that year. So I have a lot, I owe a lot to Joan in the inspiration circle. Another inspiring performance in London was between Marcel Hug and Daniel Romanchuk in the wheelchair division. There's a saying, I think it's a quote by Steve Prefontaine. I should have checked that before I started talking with you, Martin, but it says, if you can't win the race, make sure the person in front of you breaks the record. Well, that's exactly what happened. Daniel Romanchuk was on Marcel Hug's shoulder the entire time, drafting at some points. And you could tell it was kind of irritating Marcel of Switzerland. And sure enough, Marcel Hug ended up breaking the course record there in London with Daniel Romanchuk only a couple seconds behind him.
You only get that kind of insider knowledge on Marathon Talk powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors when you can hear Deena say, and I text Joan Benoit Samuelson, and she texts me back, and I had breakfast, and Eliud Kipchoge and I chatted. For others listening, I know this is the kind of stuff of dreams, but at least you can connect with it with Deena's stories on the show. So Deena, thanks for bringing in that really personal element of support. Right, I think that's probably it for London. We've got so much to cover. It was a privilege actually to catch up with TCS London Marathon event director Hugh Brasher the day after this year's London Marathon, and you can hear what he had to say right now. More than 40,000 people ran together through the streets of London on Sunday, October the 2nd, in what turned out to be perfect conditions for their 26.2-mile journey to the finish line of the 2022 TCS London Marathon. And then thousands more joined the running party by completing their marathon challenge virtually over a 24-hour window. It was on October the second, the biggest marathon in the world. There were also amazing victories for double Swiss wheelchair racers. Marcel Hug set a new course record. Catherine de Bruyne also set a new course record. There was in the elite women's race, the youngest ever London Marathon champion. And in the men's field, a win on a London debut. Incredible stories from the mass field. And it gives me great pleasure to say that on this week's Marathon Talk, I'm joined by event director Hugh Brasher. Welcome to the show, Hugh.
Hi, Martin. How are you?
Not as busy as you, most probably. You've had a very busy but very successful weekend. When you sit back, Hugh, we're recording this the day after the London Marathon this year. You sit back and you look on yesterday's events. What do you sit back and think about immediately?
Oh, good question. My head is usually already about what we need to be improving and when to be talking about that, because the team have been working incredibly hard to deliver this event, are still working incredibly hard taking it down. Picture of the Finnish crew leaving, walking across Waterloo Bridge at 1:15 in the morning last night. And, they're out still in Greenwich at the start, taking that down. They're still in St. James's Park. We've got the ballot open for 2023. So, the 23rd of April, 2023 is when the marathon, the TCS London Marathon is going to happen, which is less than 7 months away. So we have been planning that we've got a quite short window, but you have got to get on with it, but people are exhausted. So it's like, how do you balance the exhaustion? And it's funny. You're on such a high during the day and you're living on adrenaline. You've probably been eating, or in my case, far too many Percy pigs. So the sugar rush is up there, and it happens and then it's over, but you've got to pick yourself back up, pick the team back up. So that's a long answer to a relatively short question, but there are so many things that we look to make better, and you're doing that on the day of the event, let alone the day after.
And there were many things actually that it's great to see the event back. October again this year, but April next year. There were many things actually that you put in place that were different this year, and learning from previous experiences. Did any of those, when you're sat in your event director chair, were there any of those changes that you went, actually, I'm so pleased we did that. That worked?
I mean, there can be things that you're so pleased to do that you think, well, they could have worked a lot better, but I'm so pleased that we did it. And I think that the kids the TCS Mini London Marathon is one of those where we've taken the kids event onto the Saturday. So it used to be Sunday morning. It used to be just the top athletes. And, there have been some amazing athletes that as kids have won it, whether it's David Weir, whether it's Mo Farah. I mean, Alistair Brownlee didn't win it. Keely Hodgkinson did win it. I mean, there are some amazing athletes that have both won it and not won it. But actually, we have a real target of trying to get 50,000 kids to do that event in our 50th anniversary year, with 50,000 adults then the next day on the Mall. And it's taken 4.5 years to get permission for that event to happen on the Saturday, which sounds crazy because each child is getting paid £10 towards sports equipment or computer equipment to finish the event. So they're not paying for it. They're getting paid and incentivized to do it. And there was a lovely, lovely email from a school this morning in North London, and their kids just loved it. They're signing up to now run for Barnet AC. And then the kids are getting involved in the Mini London Marathon in schools. There are over 600,000 school kids already signed up to do the TCS Mini London Marathon in school. So I think, when you look at it, were there lots of things first time on the Saturday? It was a 2.6K event and the mile event, lots of things that absolutely we could have done better. But the fact that we did it and it's the start, I genuinely believe it's one of the most important things that we've done since my father and John Disley founded this event back in 1981. So that was just one answer of there are really a lot of those.
And I'm at the running show the week before the event, and so we'll see a lot of the nervous first-time runners and people, towing the line for, in some cases, their, 40th time, like people like Chris Finnell. But, back at that 1981 first event, the event was dominated by a particular breed, I guess, of runner, and, was largely made up of men. And of course, you and the event crew have worked really hard, particularly this year, but of course in recent years, to bring a much richer, much more diverse, much wider representation to the event. And that shone through this year.
Yeah, I mean, and it is it is a journey and we need to be better still. But I think, we had some great help, Jeremy Joseph with the LGBT plus community, Rainbow Row at mile 21, and just the huge party that was going on there. We've been working with groups like Emancipated Run Crew, Run Dem Crew have been, have done some amazing stuff for years close by to their first year of the assisted runners. So the Kerrs, David, Aaron and Sandra, this was their 50th marathon, and for them to do it in London, and they helped us on the journey. So we've been reaching out to people to make the event so much more inclusive. And as you said, 1981, 95.5% of the finishers were men. There were a particular breed of very thin men wearing very short shorts. So it has changed enormously, and hopefully it will carry on developing and changing as society does.
Mm. And what about the elite fields, Hugh? You spent a lot of time working, supporting those elite fields, and it's an important part of the sharp end of the race. But, for you as an event director, the leading woman fell over at one point, and went on to win. Where are you at that point, and what's your response?
Well, where I was at that point was at the back of the doing the tail walking the first 3 miles at the very, very back, watching it as I'm walking on my phone. So the marathon, the TCS London Marathon, there is so much going on the whole time. And what you have is amazing people. And if you take Spencer Barden and the team that he leads, signing up the elite athletes, responsible for them, Michelle Weltman with the para athletes, and there was so much publicity about, Bridget Koskai's dropped out, or Samo Farah's dropped out, or Tamarit Tola, the world champion, has dropped out. And it's like, well, are you going to have anyone left? And actually, and then you look at the field, no other event in history has had 6 men under 2:04 in one field. And, people that ask me, I'm not allowed to bet being an event director, but it was, the women's winner. She debuted the fastest ever marathon. I think it was in Hamburg, I think.
That's right. On her debut, she ran 2:17.
Yeah, 2:17. And, yes, she was against our defending champion. And yes, we had an incredible number of fast women. But I mean, she is the world record holder for 10K. And then it is about the next generation. I think, De Bruyne, in terms of the, she won Berlin and then coming to London. Manuela Shah was, unfortunately had to pull out just before the race, and she's been an amazing champion. So all the way through, we have incredible elite athletes, but it's all about the bigger picture of the everyday stories mixed with this is the only sport in the world where you are competing on the same time, on the same roads, on the same event arena as the gods of our sport. And do we make enough of that? I don't think we do. So the team just do an absolutely incredible job. So quick answer, I was somewhere at about mile 2 when she fell over. What can I do? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, of course you could do nothing. And I guess to see the manner of, her victory, particularly in the latter stages of the race. Ilaho was rivaling at the point with Jocelyn Jepkosgei, last year's champion, and they were there or thereabouts with the women's only 2:17:23, I think, record going for. And then I noticed this hammer drop, and I think something like a 4:43 mile at about mile 23. I could have got that slightly wrong, but it's there or thereabouts.
I think it's a 4:31 mile at mile 24, and it is slightly downhill at that point. But as you say, the hammer dropped, and I mean, I think she was only a few seconds slower than Kipruto in the men's event for that mile, which is just incredible. And the fact that she's fallen over.
Yes.
So that's quite unusual for one of the elite athletes, and especially at that late stage. I mean, it was round up between mile 20 and 21. So to pick herself up, she's only 23.
Second marathon.
Yeah, she really is, I think, going to be a force to be reckoned with. But I think women's marathon running is just exploding in standard. So many brilliant women around at the moment. I mean, 2:15 was running in Berlin only the week before. The women's only world record is 2:17:01, which is Mary Katani's on the London course. And yeah, she didn't get that, but I have absolutely no doubt. Hopefully she'll be back in April, and the weather gods are smiling on us again, which obviously they were this year because everyone was predicting terrible weather conditions.
Yeah, and it was great.
Didn't happen. Thank you. So I just talking about stories, there was just an amazing one of Anousheh Azouri, who's locked up in a jail on trumped-up charges for 12 years. And the one thing that he dreamed about, he's being tortured, he's living with rats and cockroaches. And the one thing he dreamed about was freedom, and the freedom to be able to run, and the freedom to be able to run the London Marathon. And I spoke to him beforehand, and, what he said is, this is a man that's been locked up for, I think it was for 6 years, maybe 7 years on these charges. And he goes that however dark things are, he absolutely believes that you can always find some good for the future. And that's what you've got to look for. And that's what he looked for.
And an amazing run too. I think he did 5.5 hours, which is just phenomenal. Sticking with the theme of inspiring women in the race, in 1984, Joan Benoit Samuelson won Olympic marathon gold, and she competed this year's TCS London Marathon with her daughter, and I think she ran 3 hours, 20 minutes and 20 seconds, age 65. I mean, that's an amazing story as well.
It's an amazing story. I'm not trying to play top trumps with you, but I love a story of a guy called Jerry Miller. So Jerry, I don't know whether you know Jerry, but it's the Abbott World Marathon Major Wonder Age Group World Championship. So it's like some of the best runners around the world. I think there were 92 different countries being represented. Jerry is 6 months off his 85th birthday. Jerry ran 4 hours 45. And then at the awards ceremony, and that evening we had Eliud Kipchoge give out the awards, which was quite incredible. And there is Jerry busting moves on the dance floor at 10:30 at night, and he's 84, and he's just run 4:45 for a marathon. And you're just going, this is so inspiring. And if talk about living life to the fullest, Jerry personifies that.
And it really shows the breadth and reach. I think the youngest marathon participant was actually from Bournemouth, which is close to me at 18. And, the breadth and reach of marathon running now. Fantastic to see. I love the idea of marathon top trumps, because we can keep going backwards and forwards with like the best stories, the most exciting thing that happens. For you as an event director, I realise, and actually you shone a light on it with your opening comments, lots of people, 40,000 people, will be sat at home with finishers medals now, and many more who have completed London virtually. But for you, the thing that you're thinking about are the organisational structures and the race crew and the way that, the whole event is holding together. How long is it before you in your event director role do sit back and do go, actually, these are the brilliant things that London and other, World Marathon majors around the globe. But these are the brilliant things that happen at our family of events. Do you ever sit back and say, actually, that's a good thing and this is what those things are?
I think part of the Abbott World Marathon majors, and, I'm off to Chicago this weekend. I'm off there because I haven't been there for about 10 years and want to go and check out to see all the improvements that they've made. And what we do is we keep going to each other's events and learning off each other. So collectively, We are better. We're having conversations every 3 weeks together. More often, I mean, I was sitting Ted Metellus, who's the New York City Marathon race director, Jack Fleming, Mark Milder, so Jack from Boston, and Mark from Berlin. We were in meetings and talking to World Athletics and talking to agents and sponsors. So we're always trying to move things on. I think that sort of the reflection time is part of it is the debrief process, which is 8 to 12 weeks long. This year, it's probably got to be 8 weeks long because of the fact that the next event is happening in under 7 months' time. But you're always, I think that you have to keep evolving things. It's, I think, marathon running is about evolution. It's you don't change your training, for example, and suddenly double your training load because you like to get injured. So you do little incremental changes each year. Over time, they look like huge changes, but in reality, they've been building for years. I mean, we had the most amazing finish structure, which is digital gantry, messages coming up on that gantry. Now, half that gantry had been built a year before to make sure that we could put it up in time. So people wouldn't probably have noticed last year how different it was, but we did that because the structure was so huge and people were running under a glass floor. There were people actually standing. There was a 9-meter long finish line, a depth of finish line with people standing above him. And it was just the most incredible thing to be able to do. And yeah, it just takes a lot of time. So we do reflect more as the debrief process goes on. But at the same time, I think the team are always looking at, well, what's happening the next one? This one, and really probably the next one is so soon. It's more about what we can do for 24.
And I did see something which really brought a wide smile to my face, actually. I was lucky to see Eliud Kipchoge fresh from his 2:01 in Berlin at the running show. And then I saw a little content of Eliud handing out medals to finishers at the finish line. Now, that's a very special moment for those people and an incredible gesture from race organisers, but also from him to come back and hand medals to mass participation athletes. How did that come about?
Well, we asked him. It's the simple question. Look, I mean, he is the most incredible man. I would say, yes, he's a 4-time London Marathon champion, but also we were the team that operationally put on the Ineos 159 challenge to help him in an organizational way, not to help him physiologically, but to help in an organizational way with that unbelievable run in Vienna in 2019. And he really is the most unbelievable man, human being. He's got a Zen-like quality about him. He thinks and he's passionate about the future. He's passionate about kids. How can we get the next generation? He's passionate about sustainability. I mean, he was planting the first tree in our Hall of Fame. So another thing that might not have known was going on. So before he got to the running show, he'd been planting a tree in Greenwich Park, and it's a flowering cherry blossom. And hopefully next year's marathon, it will be in full flower. 23rd of April is going to be end of April, beginning of May. But incredibly in talking to him, and just so delighted that he's planting trees. And I knew that there were trees in his training camp. They plant a fruit tree for every single athlete in the camp. What I didn't know is he actually had a plantation of his own in Kenya. And so he's got tens of thousands of trees of his own, because so there he was. We were asking him to plant a tree and all the parks are looking at him going, he knows what he's doing. Turns out, yeah, he did. He's got a plantation that's got more trees than all of the royal parks in the UK have.
And that's part of, I think, you're aiming to plant 150 trees in a part of a winner's celebration and planting of those trees before 2030, sorry, is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. There's 117 winners, because some people won it multiple times across the para events, both wheelchair and ambulant, and in the ambulant elite event. So yeah, it's 117 at the moment, and be roughly 15 trees a year. We think just as part of the sustainability drive and something that is living, and running is so good for you, both mentally and physically, and it's the mental side. I know during COVID, when we were just locked down. And, the one thing you're allowed to do was go for a run. And I always remember on the days that I didn't, and there were far too many of them, the world was not such a good place. And you wouldn't realize it until you then went for the next run and you suddenly felt a fog, or I felt a fog lifting from my mind, and just, being in nature. And by the way, running in woods, if you get a chance, it might sound an odd thing. Some people might run in woods the whole time, but living in London, we don't get a chance to run in woods. And when you do, it's just got the most special feeling. I think they're sort of they're alive themselves. So, it's the more we can encourage people to get to run and get inspired to run, the better it is for humanity.
And I think, we certainly saw that at the weekend. Just a couple of quick points, of interest for me was David Weir, 23rd consecutive appearance. I mean, and, a third place. That was inspiring. And also a huge personal best for Eden Rainbow Cooper in the women's wheelchair event, big PB. Both of those performances from a domestic point of view, but also a wheelchair point of view, really important milestones in competition.
Yeah, and again, we've massively raised the prize money for the wheelchair athletes. I think we upped it to about 190,000 from 140 odd thousand previously. So the more participants that we can encourage into the event. I mean, David is a phenomenon, and the level that he's training at, the level he's competing at, as you just said, to do 23 consecutive London marathons at that level is just, and then he's got the mini London marathon that he's been doing as well. So if you add that on top of it, it's probably 29, because I think he's 40, I think he's 42, 43. So it's just quite incredible what he is. And he's such, he's such a great ambassador, such a lovely man. And it was great that he did come third. I mean, Marcel and Hugh and Daniel Romanchek, their performance course records. But yeah, I just, the more that we get, people like to watch British people. It is a global event. It was a pity that Charlotte Purdue had to, she wasn't well, so she had to pull out, because she's just done some phenomenal performances in the race, and I know she was really looking forward to it. So again, that's the great thing about the event being in April 23. It's actually not too long, only 7 months, and or six, just under 7 months. So,
and ballots just opened. If you fancy it, the ballot is just opened for next year's TCS London Marathon. The ballot's available to get into.
It is. It shuts on Friday. So Friday at 9 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, 9 o'clock in the evening Greenwich Mean Time. So if you we always say, like the National Lottery, if you're not in it, you can't win it. So just go for it, and you never know. It could be you on that start line in April 2023.
And you're off to Chicago as a part of the Abbott World Marathon Majors this coming weekend. If it was ever a possibility and your body would allow you to, which World Marathon Major would you participate in?
I sort of have an intention to try and do them all. Done New York about 4 times and London about 3, and I've done half of Boston and half of Chicago, which doesn't sound quite right, but there was a plan to only do half of them, as opposed to I dropped out of both of them at halfway. Put it whatever way you want, but anyway. But I have whether I do that or not, I definitely want to be doing the 2030 London Marathon, and it's my 65th year. It's the 50th London Marathon. I think that would be quite a special one to do. And the last time I did the London Marathon was in 2003, the year that my dad had passed away, and I did it 6 weeks after that. And it was a very, very emotional moment. And, I always remember standing on the start line with Steve Jones, who had won, and, he's a world record holder. And I'm sort of standing there, and I know Steve, and sort of said hello. Steve, by the way, at the time was wearing some rather short shorts. I think they were his shorts from 1984 or 1985. So neither of us were really looking in the shape that we would have wanted to be in. So I thought, well, and I hadn't done the training. This was a last minute decision because of my dad passing away. And So I thought, oh, I'll set off with Steve. So I think we ran the first 10K together, and it was just a lovely experience. I suffered terribly in the second half. I remember I stopped for a massage at about mile 18, and actually it was the biggest mistake because I could hardly walk when I started again afterwards. Anyway, hopefully it won't be as bad in 2030, but you never know. I need to channel my inner Jerry Miller, I think.
Yeah, that's a thing, isn't it? Inner Jerry Miller for 2030. That will be an exciting milestone and a big celebration. And finally, when in this week, lots of people who will have finished running London or doing Chicago next weekend or Berlin a couple of weeks ago. When you're not running, so for this week, you're not doing, I know there's lots going on with running. What do you do that says, this for me is where I'm not doing anything to do with running and where I'm having that little bit of valuable time to decompress, to reset, to move to the next series of planning or the next race? What's your post-marathon race director, admitted not running, but race this time, what's your post-marathon event director go-to?
So my current go-to, and I'm really looking forward to it, is a half term down in Croyd in Devon, and I'm learning to surf. And there's just some brilliant instructors at the school, Surfing Croyd Bay. There's this old bloke with my 12-year-old daughter and my 9-year-old who, the 12-year-old's definitely better than me, trying to get up on the board. I can get up and I'm sort of doing various things, but not that good. And I think, you're in a wetsuit. It might be in October. It's in England. But the tranquility and the level of concentration, and you can't really think about anything else. I mean, I think, I motorbike race and it's the same thing. There's nothing that you can think about other than that wave. How are you going to get it? Are you timing it right? Getting up right, keeping your eyes up. You're not looking down, you're keeping up. There's so many different elements to surfing. And look, I'm absolutely useless, but I'm loving the journey of learning to surf. So that half-term week will be what I'm doing, and that's the time I will be decompressing and not thinking about the 2023 London Marathon, Ride London, or any other event that we might happen to organise.
Great. Well, listen, Hugh, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of the your views and thoughts around the TCS London Marathon 2022. It was full of course records, fantastic, inspiring performances, youngest ever London Marathon women's winner, another London debut, Amos Kipchoge, so in the men's, and thousands and thousands and thousands of wonderful mass participation finishes that were a joy to witness. We're looking forward to April 2023 already. Thanks, Hugh.
Thank you, Martin.
In episode 0, we heard from Alexandria Williams on her 6-star journey. Now we will hear about her back-to-back Berlin-London challenge.
Hi, it's Alexandria again. I'm here and now a 4-star finisher. I just finished Berlin and London within 7 days and completed what I have called a 2-week journey in overseas for the first time. I'm sitting in my room. I actually haven't had much sleep, but I feel really, really good. I think all the adrenaline from both races and just achieving 4 out of 6 stars has just have me kind of happy right now. So I'll start from the beginning about traveling to Berlin. I have such an amazing group of runner friends who literally one called me the day of I was leaving to go to the airport and walk me through the next 24 hours of going to Berlin, the airport. You might have to wait a while to get your luggage. All of the things that he went through on his trip to Berlin. That was so helpful in just calming down, honestly, a lot of anxiety and nerves that I had with traveling so far alone for the first time overseas. My training was mixed. I had a very good progression, was getting faster,
but also I was coming off of COVID and the effects that it had on my lungs. I knew that I could probably PR comfortably in Berlin, and I wanted to be very conservative on this race since it was both flat and I had to go to London the next week. I enjoyed Berlin more than I expected to. It reminded me a lot of DC here in the States, but it was much cleaner and spacious to me. I love the fact that it was very easy to have vegan and vegetarian options. There was juice and salads, very healthy foods right within steps of me from my hotel or anywhere I went. I enjoyed even following the trains and walking by foot. Again, it was very easy for me to navigate, just like how it is at home. I experienced a really cool meetup, which I enjoy seeing this new class of Berlin Black runners. It was so fun to just get together, and it's kind of like you graduated, but you made it there to Berlin. And so looking back, even though I was sleepy, I truly enjoyed it because a couple of people were also going to London. So in London, we got a chance to really hang out more and get to know each other. Now, about the race in Berlin, I would say there's some highs and a lot of lows. So I'll start off with the good parts of it. It's a flat course. So if you do not like hills, Berlin is definitely for you. And I mean, it's pretty much pancake flat. My hotel was perfectly placed right at the start and finish line, which meant I didn't have to worry too much about the morning or after the race. I was able to attend a lot of the race festivities, which typically I'm not able to do just because I'm trying to get off my feet or they're far away. And so it was great that everything was just right around the corner and centrally located for me. I also really like seeing rollerblading for the first time. That was a lot of fun. I ended up not doing the 5K and spent time to just cheer and look at the kids and cheer them on in their race and also enjoy rollerblading. I've never seen anything like that. I commend them all. And it was a joy just to experience that in live time and not just see it online. Now, the lows of the race was after coming off of the best mile and a half of running, leading up to about the 15th mile, my right leg completely locked up. My thigh was aching and I just felt a knot in it. So I remember someone telling me that there were massage stations, and I was so helpful. They told me it was 2 or 3 of them because my plan went into action to actually stop at each one in order to get this knot out. Now, I felt great. I had energy. There was nothing quote unquote wrong, just my leg locked up. I couldn't figure it out. And honestly, I started panicking, believing that it was just like Boston 2022 earlier this year again. I tried to calculate the time, and unfortunately, I did what I call an American mistake, where I was calculating in miles and not calculating based on 5K and banking the time. So I ended up finishing probably 2 minutes after 6 hours and 15 minutes, which was well over 30 minutes of what I even had planned on a conservative race for me. I was really disappointed. I honestly have texts and voice notes that I said I was quitting, with Boston earlier this year missing that cutoff, and now what felt like I missed the cutoff again. Even after all of the training for a full year, I felt that perhaps just having 2 stars was all that I needed to do. I really appreciate my running family. Many of them understood, shared their frustrations on their journey as well, and it made me feel like I'm not alone. But most importantly, they supported me even if I did want to quit. And that was something that was different and kept me a bit sane in what was a really downside for me. I even had one friend who actually researched the last 3 years of data on Berlin's site to see the finishers who both had stars in more than the time that I had. He was like, you're going to get the star. Here's all the people, and some of them he knew. But I just wanted to see what I wanted to see at the time. So once I finally saw my star, I honestly cried. I did apologize to everyone and I thanked them so much. It's again about what I said before. There is so much more than the time on the clock. And I went to London and cleared my mind a bit more. And honestly, I had a good time leading up to the race. I ate really good. I walked everywhere. I did not run. I slept. My hotel was amazing. I've been all over the city. I had proper English breakfast tea, which I'm a big tea drinker. So I felt like this was kind of like my secondary home here. Everyone is so polite and proper. I learned a lot of British slang and I got to use it. I even attended another meetup, and this time we had a blast. I got to actually have a couple of cocktails with friends that I hadn't seen, some that I met, and stayed out on a Friday night past midnight, which, as runners, that's rare, very rare. I haven't done that in a long time. My legs felt fine. I ended up having a really good massage from Adrian, who's basically my running mother. She signed me up for one. That was a special massage and it fixed everything in both my legs, actually. And that meant so much to me. I made sure I rested and recovered and regrouped with my coach, which we had a meeting in the middle of Starbucks for me. And I really focused on what people were saying. Enjoy London. It is a fun race. It's a great city. You don't have to push it. It's okay. And I still wanted to have a time, of course, but I really appreciate what she said as well as the other friends. I had a great morning the day of the race. I was able to just take a charter bus there, so I slept half the way. We were there early, so I slept again because I think I was just tired and the nerves were starting to, come in. But I put my game face on, I followed it, and everything was really organized. I love the pre-event festivities. There was the news there. There was a lot of love, support, everything. And then when it was time to run, it was very easy. I just went out and said, I'm just going for a nice, easy, long run. And this will be my time that I'm able to sightsee for the city. And middle of the race, well, a little bit before the middle of the race, a Jamaican lady came out of nowhere and was like, my sister, I see you. She gave me the biggest hug, pretty much picked me up off the ground and a kiss on my cheek. I've never had that to happen in a race. And it was in that moment and her joy of seeing me, a Black runner who looks like her, it meant a lot to me. I may never see her again, but I will always remember that moment. And I said, I'm going to enjoy this race and not race it. So I emailed my coach in the middle of it and said, yes, scrap this, time plan. I'm going to just enjoy it. I took pictures. I danced with drag queens. I enjoyed all the drumming. I recorded myself going over Tower Bridge. I think I did so many fist bumps with kids who were there. I had a shot of something, I don't know what, and sang Sweet Caroline. Like, I had a blast. I've never done that in a race, let alone a full marathon coming after another marathon. I mean, the city was just amazing. I truly enjoyed it. My phone was pretty much dead by the time that I finished. But I finished strong and happier than when I started the race. And that says a lot for London. I knew I had my 4th star, so I didn't worry about that. I'm cheesing in just about every single picture, so that tells you how much fun I had. And when I look back, I actually was faster than Berlin, which proves my point. I'm a better hill runner than anything. But my condition is really amazing, and I'm just a little hard on myself. So overall, I would say the ending, the being on the mall, London has a special place in my heart because of that. And achieving 2 stars overseas in 2 weeks, it proves that marathoners are definitely crazy, but I am very proud of myself.
In each show, we'll be featuring an Abbott World Marathon Majors 6 questions with a 6-star finisher. We'll be sharing with our 6-star finishers a regular opportunity to feature on the show. So you can get involved if you finish 6 of the Abbott World Marathon Majors.
And today, our 6-star finisher is Brian Peers, who in 2019 earned his 6th star and that shiny medal. He's from Wokingham, UK. And he said that exploring Tokyo was his most memorable major experience. So if you still have Tokyo to go, it would be a good incentive to keep at it. His favorite iconic landmark was the Houses of Parliament and Buckingham Palace in London. One thing he wished he had known was to buy a disposable poncho at the convenience store to stay warm at the start of his race. Take note, marathoners. And the course with the most support, he said, was Boston. He loved the pizza and beer on the sidelines. And his fastest, Berlin, in 2:41. We could have run together, Brian. Good job.
Right, we are almost there at the end of episode 1. Deena, you've had a busy couple of weeks, but what's going on for you at the moment? What's happening next?
Oh gosh, the Chicago Marathon is coming up next. So it is just a autumn, fall season of packing and repacking bags, but the events just keep delivering, keeping us exciting to be on the road and to experience what is the Abbott World Marathon Majors racing season.
Chicago, brilliant, must hold some amazing memories for you. Are you looking forward to going back? Are you going to run? Are you just going to watch? Like, what's up? How's the legs? And are you going to be doing anything in Chicago?
You know, many of the major races now have races the day before, half marathons and 5Ks for families or shakeout runs for the marathoners themselves. So I'll be running the 5K before Chicago. Last year, I had the privilege of running with Joan Benoit Samuelson and my manager, the great Rafe Flynn, who is still the Irish record holder in the mile. So just great opportunities to continue get together with great people in the sport.
Fantastic. What a week.
What about you, Martin? What's next for you?
I am not going to the Chicago Marathon to run with Joan Benoit. I am celebrating my boy's 9th birthday.
Oh,
there you go.
Gosh.
So while you're running in Chicago, it's my twin boy's 9th birthday. And I think we're going to go to the cinema. We're going to watch a film and we got a little party. And so, yeah, I'm kind of doing dad life.
You get to eat cake. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
And it's great, Martin, that we can team up. You took London, I took Berlin, I'll take Chicago. We'll just keep passing the torch each weekend.
Really excited to see how the Bank of America Chicago Marathon fields unravel next week. Exciting racing again. Deena, really enjoy your pre-Chicago run. I hope that's amazing for you. That is all for episode 1 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. Enjoy your run, and we'll see you next time.